All right. So it's kind of convoluted a little bit, so I feel like we need to work our way through. So let's read it first, all right? From what Douglas recounts in the narrative of the life of Frederick Douglass, to what extent did he apparently consider himself to be the shaper of his own destiny? And how much did he believe outside forces contributed to his eventual freedom and his success as an anti-slavery crusader? Cite specific examples from the narrative to support your points. All right, so there's a couple of things. So I think we've talked about this a little bit, but we've looked at the argument, right? So we need to find the task, and the task is right here. So we're going to kind of mark our task, all right? So we've talked about it because this is an argument. What have we said? Do you remember what we said about to what extent? So we said in an argument, there are basically kind of three positions you can take. Do you remember what those three positions are? Agree, disagree, and qualify. Okay? So we're going to write this down because this is kind of like the best way that I know how to explain it, and I think I've showed all this before. So if you agree, let's say you are 100% for the death penalty. This is the easiest example that I have, right? Disagree means you are 100% against the death penalty. Now everybody's with me so far, right? So those arguments, if you are 100% for or 100% against, are weak arguments, because usually somebody from the other side could punch holes in your argument somewhere. So if you qualify an argument, you're going to have a stronger argument. So qualify means you're about, I would say it's about 80-20, right? So you are 80% for the death penalty, and then your 20% is accept in cases of diminished mental capacity. So what that means is you are 100% for it, right? Except for when somebody doesn't have the mental capacity to understand the difference between right or wrong, right? So that's qualifying. So to what extent means a qualified argument. So you can either say defend, challenge, qualify. You can agree, disagree, qualify. Or you could say to what extent. So to what extent covers a little bit of both. All right. What are some other key words in there that you think are important?
Apparently consider himself.
Okay. So what does it mean apparently? Like, what does that mean?
Recently, no.
Get out your phones real quick. I'll let y'all look up some key terms in here. What other words can we look up? What other things in here do we think? Yeah, I'd say destiny is important. What about crusader? Let's look up those. All right, so somebody look up apparently for me. Somebody look up destiny, and somebody look up crusader. As far as one knows, or what?
Can see.
Okay. Destiny.
A fighter in medieval crusades. Yeah, no. What?
That's crusader.
Yeah.
Okay, so read the second definition.
A person who combines.
A person who what?
I don't know.
A person who campaigns vigorously for political, social, or religious change. Okay, good. So let's do a crusader as a person who campaigns. What was the second part of that, Omar? Vigorously, right? A person who campaigns vigorously
Yeah, for a political, social, or religious change.
for a political, social or
Social,
religious.
change.
Okay. Yeah, that's pretty important. A person who campaigns vigorously for a political, social, or religious change, right? Anybody look up destiny yet?
Events that will happen necessarily to a particular person or thing in the future.
All right. What do y'all know about, like, when you think of destiny, like, what does that idea of destiny mean?
Like you're destined to do this.
Yeah, like it's like predetermined, right? Okay. Okay, so this idea of him being a shaper of his own destiny, what does that mean? If you are a shaper of your own destiny. Yeah.
Shapes his own path.
And how would you, like, how do we think that happens? So if you, I feel like that's kind of contradictory, right? Like if you believe in destiny, then whatever happens, like whatever decisions you make are already predetermined, right? So if somebody is a shaper of their own destiny, then how do they shape their own destiny?
They make their own decisions.
Okay, so good. What else would we say? How else could your destiny be shaped?
Those decisions contradict the destiny.
Decisions contradict, like the predetermined, like the destiny already determined? Yeah. Okay. I think this idea of like a shaper is like it's a choice that's made, right? So it's the control is in his hands. Okay. Do you remember when we annotate what I said I like to do with conjunctions, like the ands? Put a heart around them. So, consider himself to be the shaper of his own destiny, and how much. So here's like the first part of the question. I would kind of say like this, how much is the second part of the question, right? How much did he believe outside forces contributed to his eventual freedom? So if we talk about outside forces, what would be, you guys know enough about history, we'll watch a little background on him in a minute. If you talk about like during like slavery times, right? What would be outside forces? If you are a slave, what would be outside forces that might be able to affect your daily life? Okay, so like freedom movements. What else?
Slave owner stuff, kind of.
Yeah, absolutely. So slave owners. What else? Heather, do you need to move closer for your eyes?
I would say weather, heat conditions.
Okay, so like environmental conditions. David, what'd you say?
The police.
What'd you say?
The police.
Don't really have police during this time period.
Oh. Well, this is this is, I think that's actually, some people say that's how the police started, was to chase down runaway slaves.
Okay, so some kind of like law, like regulation,
Yeah.
right? I mean, and those can also be our like laws and rights, right? So, I mean, you could also kind of put that under like the government. Anything else you could think of for outside forces?
Any wildlife? Snakes?
I don't know if that would lead to like his eventual freedom. Yeah, that's part of the environment too. All right. So here is what we're doing. So what would you say? So if I would have you paraphrase with a partner, write a question that paraphrases this. That paraphrases kind of what we just wrote down. So I would say I would start with, to what extent. Now, paraphrase what we just wrote down so that you have your own language for that prompt. Work with a partner, you got like 1 minute. Paraphrase the prompt. Work with a partner. And I'm going to be doing like over the next like 3 weeks. I'm going to be doing nothing but stuff up there.
I got lost too.
I don't think I've ever seen it.
Yep. To what extent?
So look at our keywords and see what you can.
To what extent a person might
To what extent is, or what? To what extent did Frederick Douglass? Is it hard to think on the first day? It's hard to think without caffeine. So, to what extent did Frederick Douglass what? I would say we'd look at this part right here. How can we rephrase that?
try to change the future.
Okay, to what extent did Frederick Douglass believe he could change his future? Okay.
And how much did outside forces affect?
Can we rephrase outside forces? Like what would we, like what else could we call outside forces? So, and how much?
Society?
Okay. Did society what?
Health? Banking?
I mean, I don't know if it contribute necessarily means help, right? Because like if you're talking about like slave owners, when we get into reading it, you could have like good, there were good and bad ones.
How does society affect?
Okay, how did society affect
This outcome.
His people.
I would say his eventual freedom, or his,
Release.
I think that would work. To what extent did Frederick Douglass believe he could change his future, and how much did society affect his freedom? His
Will.
yeah, I maybe think will, his, because we're talking about, so he is a slave and becomes free. So his
Idea.
freedom is like what happens after. His what? Yeah. I mean, I think it, his faith in his freedom?
What's that face?
Fate. Oh, yeah. Yeah, that's better. Good. Oh, God. Yes, I like it. Good. Okay, make sure you don't lose that page. Miss Smith. Yes. Right. Yep. Heather, J203, she said for just a minute. Okay, so keep this page because what we're going to use this, we're going to come back to this quite a bit, this like as we're reading. And then also what you'll see on the other side is this is your evidence. So keeping that essay prompt in mind, as we read chapter 1, you're going to say, is he a shaper of his own destiny or did outside forces contribute to his freedom? So you would tell me what you believe and then you would find the evidence and then jot down the page number, right? So here's what I would say for this quarter. Do you guys have like a place where you keep your like English work?
Yeah.
I would say that we need to keep all of our stuff in like one folder, right? Because we're going to have all of our chapters. Since you don't have to have a book, I'm copying all the pages for you. So you're going to have all of these things to work with you, right? All right. On this prompt page on the bottom, do y'all have some room for some notes?